Hello everybody, thank you very much for taking the time to hear my presentation. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you today, but I thought I'd give you a brief overview of the research that I'm interested in a South American and Peruvian context. My name is John Tredinnick-Rowe and I work in the University of Plymouth, Faculty of Health and Human Sciences. I also have an honorary contract at Exeter Medical School. So what I'm interested in talking to you about is medical semiotics and medical semiology in South America and Peru in the specific. I'm particularly interested in humanities subjects in medicine, particularly one called semiotics, and how this has played itself out in Peruvian medical education. So that in a nutshell is what I'd like to engage people with in the Peruvian Research Network. So what is medical semiotics? Briefly, it's the application of the sign theories of Charles Sanders Peirce, who you may have heard of, who is the founder of pragmatics, but also of a discipline called semiotics. Semiotics is a study of signs, more crassly the study of meaning, and it's how this works in medicine. I'll skip over it briefly, but if you can think about how you use verbal, olfactory, auditory, and gesticular signs, semaphores, to identify symptoms in a patient. That's what this is concerned with. It's almost the logic of reasoning in clinical diagnoses, predominantly identification of symptoms. So you know when a rash has a particular colour and a particular hue and a particular texture, what that corresponds to in terms of disease category, for example. You know how to identify ischemic heart disease because of how the symptoms present themselves as signs in the patient. So primarily it's about symptomatology and also a little bit about the history of medicine. I'll go over this quickly, but there's not a lot in the Anglosphere that uses Saussure, who's another semiological theorist. I just put a nice little diagram up for you. So these are the two main theorists who were in this school, Charles Sanders Peirce and Ferdinand de Saussure, and a little picture of Hippocrates on the left as well for you. So it may seem a bit abstract as a concept, diagnosis through signs. That is how a lot of diagnosis is done right up to the modern period. It may seem abstract, but there's Hellenic literature, for example, and Hippocrates about the diagnostic process. And you can see before you had any modern technology, your only inkling for making diagnosis was really through logic and signs. The work of Galen is also quite important in this area. There is contemporary literature on this as well up to about the 1840s, approximately, where semiotics and diagnosis was intimately put together as subjects, and I'm interested in how it might be functional or useful back in a more modern academic context in medicine. There is quite a lot of current literature on this subject. I'll just quickly give you a few slides there, references at the end. Again, you can see lots of topics here: HIV, diagnostics, schizophrenia. Jump to the next slide. E-health, autism, Williams syndrome, immunology, lots of symptomatology. So it's not as niche a subject as it may sound. However, in South America there's something called medical semiology. It's been around for quite a while. You can find old papers from about 1928. Particularly some of the older ones was written by a man called Costas de Béziers. There are lots of books in contemporary literature about teaching this subject. You can see in those pictures the texts say things like Semiologia Medica Physiopathologica. Lots of this is standard clinical skills subject, and I'm interested in see if I can connect up the humanities approach to medical semiotics to how it's presented and taught in South America, and particularly Peruvian medical schools as a subject. I will whiz through this because I'm running out of my 5-minute slot. I don't have too much time to go as in depth as I'd like, but that's it in a nutshell. Medical humanities and the use of them in education, in medicine in Peru, particularly in a subject called medical semiology, but as a broader category, humanities subject in medicine in Peru is something I'm interested in my research. So it's an interesting thing that the way it's described in the textbooks that I've read through. Obviously this is Portuguese, not Spanish, but you can see that it's described as an art, really. Semiology is a visual art, so it's also an auditory art, so you're having this interesting interconnect of medicine and art as a practice, and that's how it's described. So I think it warrants further investigation from that perspective. I'm just going to skip these slides quickly and get to the end for you. So the crux of this is I wanted to find out why European, if you like, Anglo-American work kind of got rid of this subject, because it only really still exists in most of South America, used to a little bit in Italy to an extent, and I want to know why we took a less humanistic approach to medicine in some ways than I think the way medicine is practiced in Peru, and that's part of the crux of my research interest as well. Some references. I currently work with people in the Universidad Nacional Federico Villarreal and Universidad de San Martín de Porres, who are happy to expand this network for anyone and any other institutions, of which there are many of in Peru. That's it really. There's my name and my email address. If any of that you found stimulating or interesting, or think you'd like to work with me, please get in contact, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope you have a really good conference for the rest of the day.